We'll call the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Have the pledge to the flag. Michael, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Here.
Veronica Buchanan, Jerry Sartain,
Here.
Joe Michoto,
Here.
Michael Rather,
Here.
Jared Barrett, Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
You have mailed out to you the minutes of our last meeting. Are there any changes or additions to those minutes?
Move be approved, Mr.
Have a
Chairman.
motion they be approved. Have a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. They are approved. We have two items on our agenda tonight. First item we have is a request by Richard Reeves, and this has to do with approval of the barrel pit. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Cantrell. Application 2018-06, filed by Richard Reeves, involves the property in the vicinity of 950 Jefferson Pike. It's a 215-acre parcel, zone residential medium density, and you'll be familiar with this request. It's seeking to renew a temporary special exception that has been issued since 2012 and maintains continuous operation by coming before you once or twice a year. To have the original approval reinstated with all of the original conditions. There were some later amendments in 2013 that were approved and are listed in the staff findings. And the applicant has made no changes since the last request that you considered in 2017, and they are currently working under that permit that was granted. And if the approval occurs tonight, the effective date of this particular request would be May 6th, because that's when the current permit expires. So there are no additional changes. They are not proposing to expand the excavation areas, only work within the areas that were previously approved. We have received several calls, informational calls, as well as a couple calls in opposition, concern about dust and safety, the lack of fencing, and lack of reclamation that's taking place. And we have the county engineer, Mike Hughes, here to address any of those issues, as well as the site inspector, John Cortez. So that was an aerial of the site. We post 3 signs on the site for this particular request. It does surround the Riverwalk subdivision. We've had some concerns about the setbacks from Jefferson Pike brought to our attention. However, the applicant's not proposing any changes to the setbacks from Jefferson Pike, which is 150 feet. And these are photos of the surrounding area and the Riverwalk subdivision. That was a poor photo. And of signage that was placed advertising, and that's the photo of the landfill, which is the recipient of the soils that are being excavated from this particular site. And staff finds that it meets the conditions and has been in compliance with the conditions of the permit, and that concludes our presentation.
Want any comments from the staff at this time?
Do you have anything to add?
Just that we have received a few calls about this extraction permit. One recently dealing with trucks bringing vehicles, material into the extraction area, and we found out that it was mulch that they're going to use to reclaim exposed areas, excavated areas, and other than that, we address the dust issue when it comes up every time. There's a I don't know if you can see it on the screen. This is the former drip disposal area for the step system for Riverwalk. It has been moved down here, and along this, I guess it's the western edge of the Reeves property, is a exposed bank that will be, since this is offline now, let me move this over. Since the drip disposal area is offline, this area can be reclaimed and that bank removed and a lesser grade established along here. We've been working with the contractors out here to make sure that this does get reclaimed, the areas that they've finished, and that the mulch will help with that, help stabilize the area. And we like I said, we visit at least monthly and after each inspection, if needed. And after each call. We get a call, we'll go out and look at it.
Thank you. We'll open this now. If we have someone here representing this request, if you'll come around.
Well, I'm Ted Goodman of Murphy and Goodman Attorneys. We represent the applicants, who are Joan and Richard Reeves, in this request for special exception. Next slide, please. This is a request for renewal of the special exception permit that has been in existence for quite some time now, allowing the Reeveses to conduct borrow pit operations, which allows the Reeveses to sell clay to the adjoining BFI site, which is a necessary part of landfill operations. Next slide. It is the Richard and Joan Reeves property, which is 215.66 acres on East Jefferson Pike, directly adjacent to the BFI property. Next slide. This is the map of the property you've already seen tonight. We've already become pretty familiar with it. This is East Jefferson Pike. This is the Riverwalk subdivision. This is the Reeves property. The areas and hash marks are the areas that have been approved for borrow pits that we're asking to have renewed. It's exactly the same thing. That's exactly the same permits. We're just asking for renewal. And this is the adjoining BFI Republic Waste Services property. Next slide. It's important to understand a number of key facts regarding this proposal. This does not extend or expand the life or scope of the landfill. The clay is normally trucked into the landfill property by dump trucks using the public roads. They will inevitably get the clay from some other source, if not from the Reeves property, which would require extensive dump truck trips across the public roads. This merely allows the landfill to obtain the clay, take it directly across the fence line without ever going onto the public roads, and all clay removed from the Reeves property is taken directly across that fence line. It never goes on the public roads. This removes about 50 dump truck trips a day off the public roads, which prevents about 60,000 dump truck trips on the public roads leading to the BFI site over the life of the project, which preserves the road surfaces, reduces the possibility of traffic accidents, and reduces congestion. Next slide. The Reeveses have made a number of commitments and promises to the neighbors, to the county, and to this board. They reaffirm and will continue to honor all of those commitments and promises, and all of those are memorialized in writing on file with the Planning Commission. Next slide. A highlight of some of those commitments: excavation occurs from only one section of 5 acres or less at a time. Prior to extracting the clay, the topsoil is removed and stored on site. After the excavation is complete, the topsoil is returned and the property is reseeded to restore that section. The goal of the project is 6 months after the project is complete, the land should appear undisturbed. Next slide. No blasting is occurring or will occur during this project. Dump trucks and service trucks involved in the project are prohibited from entering or exiting the property through any residential neighborhood, and excavation occurs only during daylight hours. Next slide. All borrow pits are set back at least 150 feet from all residential property lines, at least 50 feet from all other property lines, and the applicant will continue to utilize extensive efforts to prevent dust, erosion, and air pollution. Next slide. The BZA retains extensive oversight and control of this project. At the end of each permitting period, the applicants are required to come back before the BZA to request a renewal, just like we've been doing. A permitting period is 6 months with a potential of a 3-month administrative extension, and this allows the BZA to continue to police the applicant's fulfillment of their commitments and obligations to the neighbors, to the county, and to this board. Thank you.
Questions of Ted while he's up here? We'll give you a chance just a minute not to question here. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
We'll open this now for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. If you'll come to the podium and give us your name and make your statement. We're open for a public hearing.
I'm Dane Wilson. I'm a local resident in that area. I just wanted clarity. I heard two things, that it was going to be reclaimed using mulch, and then I heard it's going to be reclaimed using the topsoil that was originally removed. Could I get clarity on that? Did I hear it wrong?
They'll use mulch as a temporary cover to prevent additional erosion until they can get topsoil spread and grass seed out there.
Mulch has gotten to be a generalized word now. Is that?
It's wood bark, wood mulched trees.
Okay. You know, we do have mulch from rubber tires now.
No, none of that. None of that.
That answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
Next, someone over here wanted to speak, if you'll come around. Those of you who'd like to speak on this issue, just come on over to this spot here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman, my name is Steve Piercy. I'm the Commissioner of the 2nd District in which this lies in. There's a huge concern in our district over trash right now, and of course they have nothing to do with the dump whatsoever other than selling them the soil for cover. My concern is probably not in this extension, but probably closer to the next extension where they will have view of their excavation from the Jefferson Pike. There's a small sample, which they did not do, on down at the end, across the fence from their property, of where it has been taken away and left. It's quite an eyesore. It holds water. It's a mosquito-infested area. There's no fence around that. It's a hazard for safety, wrecks, children, etc. I talked to Mr. Sadler today, twice, matter of fact, and Mr. Reeves, and I believe they would be in consideration of doing what I would like to see done. They have a 150-foot buffer from Jefferson Pike where they will be excavating. In other words, they can't dig any closer to the Jefferson Pike than 150 feet. I'd like to see them build a 4 to 6 foot berm where their property digging stops. So there will be a sight block for the neighbors across the street and also coming through traffic, so we don't have to ride down the road and look at an excavated ground until they get it reclaimed, which you don't know how long that'll be. That depends on weather and everything. but it really ought to be burned up for a site. Probably wouldn't hurt if some type of fence was put up to keep children, four-wheelers, whatever, off of this property until they choose to do something else with it after it's reclaimed. I think they would probably be okay with that. You know, you can ask them. I've talked to them. They seem like they would be. But that's not my job to say here or there. That will be y'all and Mr. Reeves' operation. Are you the gentleman that checked the site? Is everything up to good?
They're currently in compliance with everything, and whenever we have a call, I usually try to make it a point to get out there either that same day or early the next day. And everything that there is concern with, we usually take care of that day. Mr. Sadler's been very good in being proactive. In fact, this past summer, he accompanied the site with having a water truck out there and just using a lot of water to help keep that dust down during the dry times.
Commissioner, if you would sit down with these folks when you get a chance, they'll be glad to talk to the owners out there about some of your concerns and see what could be done.
I thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next, please. Come on around here.
Hi, my name is Gina Gwynn, and I'm in the area there, and I do have some concerns. First of all, I'm at a loss of understanding for how a temporary exemption can run since 2012. That, to me, is not a temporary exemption. I'd also like to know if there has been any portion of this excavating borrow pits, is there any portion that has actually been reclaimed as per the county ordinance and the state law?
To my knowledge, there have not been.
Okay, now that, again,
Yes, there's a small area in the middle that's kind of got some vegetation in it, but not as much as we'd like to see.
It will be.
right, well, I think that they've been given a lot of leeway to this, and it's continued on and on and on and on. And they are asking that this request, the 2018-006, be actually incorporated into the previous 8 zoning appeal approvals that they have gotten, so everything goes into that. Also, do we know what portion of this land has been disturbed? Because I know that
We do.
okay, the law, actually, in the ordinance by just the county of Murfreesboro and by the Tennessee Department of Water Resources does cover, there's to be a 5%, and you all are asking for right at 33%. So that's, that's a whole lot of difference on that. I can tell you too that from what, at this particular time, even though there are not any homes actually being constructed in that area, Mr. Reeves does have 6 construction permits out there from the Division of Water Resources. And those are NPDES, which is a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, basically to go by and prevent any kind of water fall off into any kind of waters. And I can tell you, too, that is actually located within a watershed area, and there is an endangered species 1 mile upstream and 5 miles downstream. And it looks to be that they are that's the main concern. It's like, okay, so how have they been able to continue to do this? to operate off of a temporary
Because we
exception.
approve it in sections.
Okay, so does it not have to be, I mean, can you all
Question, I answered the question. We're not getting into a debate over this. I'll try to answer specific questions if I can.
I would like to make a comment that I've just heard from someone that this is not being broadcast, and I'd like for that to go ahead and begin.
Now, you live in this area? is that
Yes,
right?
I do.
Do you live in the subdivision next to it?
No, but I tell you, I mean, this is a community thing, okay? It's a community. I live in that area. Where do you live?
Where
I think you
live?
you all need to take a field trip out there. All of you.
You live on Thompson Lane?
No, I live further out, like off of, right off of 231 North, the next road down. Yeah, and I'm not, basically, I am just here I have a lot of people in the area and that live right there in that subdivision. I've spoken to them, and they have felt like, they have been told, there's going to be a beautiful lake and walking trails and this and that. And I think that we really need to look at granting this additional zoning variance for a number of reasons. I can tell you too that there are controls in place and statutes in place that any kind of fugitive dust, and that's what I hear a lot of. And I mean, it's not been
Let me
reclaimed.
explain one thing to you on this. This board tried to look at the overall welfare of Rutherford County. Instead of hauling in a liner from all over the county, you had one right next to it. And if we can monitor that and make sure that it's operated correct, and we feel like it is according to what's reported to us, then it's probably the best alternative. They're going to get that clay somewhere. This is right next to the landfill, and they don't have to go out on the road. They go straight into the landfill. And that was our thinking about it. Also, if they're digging dirt somewhere else out here, it's very difficult for us to monitor it the way we would at this one site. So it's probably the best that we could possibly do.
I realize that, and I know when you're thinking that actually does that. I believe it would not be such an issue if they were reclaiming the property as they went, as per codes and rules.
Well, I could agree with you on that. We would all prefer that, but we're going to see that it is reclaimed, and they give us their word that it will be, and it is in writing.
And I'm
so it will
looking-
have to be done.
That's what I'm seeing, it is a 6-month period to reclaim that particular area. So basically what they have been granted previously and what it looks like they're probably going to be granted today would be exemption from the reclamation. So that's, I mean, they've gone from 6 months to 6 years. That's quite a difference.
Okay? Anything else you need to talk to us about?
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact.
Surpassed your 3-minute allotment for this, so make it very quick.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I didn't realize I was on a time frame. And again, I think that before anything is granted, is we need to have available the commitments that Mr. Reeves have made to, that you alluded to, that he made to the community and the neighbors as far, I don't know what those contain. All I can say is that it's right here in black and white, that it's not being followed as far as what these zoning appeals have approved. It's not, I mean, they're in violation of they're not following that, so, but, I mean, that's a concern, and would also like to mention that this is, basically, they're saying that this is a 215-acre site, zoned at this point as a medium density. This is the same parcel that's actually zoned agriculture through the tax map.
Have you had a chance to sit down with our engineer and talk about this?
I would like that, but I don't think at this time that this appeal should be granted due to, there needs to be more conversation prior to this being granted.
Let me invite you to do that, okay?
Okay. That sounds fair.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question, and the question is going to be to staff. This application that's before us tonight, does this application meet all state and county regulations that where they've applied for, and has this applicant met all the restrictions that this body has actually put in place?
Yes. They have the state stormwater permit in place, the MPDES permit that she's mentioning, and it's active as we speak. Right now, I had John check on that previously. Their land disturbance permit through our county is active, and typically they only excavate in a 5-acre area that they're supposed to. Do they need to reclaim more? Yes, and we're working with them on that to get that covered up and stabilized. The previous permit was pretty much through the winter months, the fall and winter months, so we weren't having any good growing season, but this spring we should have some good chance to get some grass growing.
And I bring that up because I want, that way we can get the ladies' questions answered, and that way, so they do meet everything that they're required to meet through state.
Well, like I said, we're working on getting more of the area stabilized that they finished the excavation in, and as far as runoff for the site, the water, as you can see in the aerial, water collects in these excavated areas, so it's not running off site, it's collecting in here and settling out here.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We're still open for a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak on this subject.
Mr. Cantrell, we have a sign-in sheet.
What?
We have a sign-in sheet that we'd like people who are speaking.
Okay. We do have a sign-in sheet, so make sure you do sign that. We'd like to keep that as a public record.
Hi, I'm Shonda Fowler, and I have a question. Is there any way that you could make this provisional on them doing the reclamation on what they've already excavated? I mean, is there any way to make a provision? They want this started May 6th, why can't you make it a provisional that they need to cover up a certain percentage before they can have that permit approved?
This is the approving body up here.
I mean, is that unheard of?
Is the fact that it's not reclaimed at this point, is that a hindrance to you because of dust, or just of it, or?
It's a hindrance because of dust.
Okay.
It's also a safety issue.
Okay.
What if a child gets out, wanders? This is a huge safety issue. I mean, you're surrounded by a community. Why can't? They're supposed to do it at some point. Why not make them go ahead and do it now? Is there some reason why, the grand recovering act is going to be when it's all said and done? Why can't they do it in stages? They're excavating it out in stages. Why not cover it back up in stages?
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
I have a feeling after you all made these questions, they're going to be out there working to reclaim some of the stuff they've already.
I'm sorry, say again?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry.
I said, once you all have raised these questions, I have a feeling they'll be out there reclaiming some of the areas.
Do we know if they've reclaimed any of it? What percentage have they actually reclaimed that they have already taken the soil out?
I could let Mr. Goodman speak, but I think this area to the south has already been reclaimed.
Do we know acreage-wise? They're doing 5 acres at a time.
Whatever that
How much acreage have
permit
they
was.
actually taken out? How much have they actually put in reclamation already?
Well, why don't you, those are some very difficult questions for them to answer right now. So if you will take a look at that with these folks, maybe that'll help you to understand. But the reclamation will take place. That will happen.
In my honest
It may
opinion, I
not
think it
happen.
needs to be conditional, because I think at this point, they're going to just keep saying, oh, we'll do it eventually, we'll do it eventually. Eventually doesn't work, you need timelines.
Well, wait a minute now. I think it can take place, and it will take place.
When
Maybe not
they're
as
totally
quickly
finished
as you want to.
excavating 215 acres, then they're going to be saying, oh, now we have to go in and fix it. And then it's going to be another excuse. I really think that y'all need to look at doing a provisional permits. Hey, we're going to approve you to do this, but we will do it on a provisional basis that you have to reclaim so much before you're allowed to do it. You have to hold them accountable, because they're not going to do it themselves.
We are holding them accountable. Anyone else? We're still open for public hearing. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Are there any comments from our board? We're looking at one item only.
I'd like to ask the engineer, is some of the reclamation delay totally because it's in the middle of winter? And it takes spring to come before we can do those things and get the grass growing again. I mean, you can't reclaim something in January.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Thank you.
And you will make sure that that's being done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other?
I just want to, I guess, I don't know if Mr. Goodwin would want to come in and address this, but something that the commissioner had brought up a while ago where they had talked, is that something that you all would want to? Yes, I'd like to make a motion to allow Mr. Reeves to come up and speak.
Okay, do we have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. It is approved. Come on around.
Put that map back up there that shows the actual areas that were approved. Yeah, that one right there. I wanted to get the commission, Mr. Chairman, sort of up to date on a couple of things that are going on, if I could. That area right there was a previous drip field that had been approved by CUD, and they had started having some problems with maintenance because the trunk line went all the way down to this area right in here, actually right in here. So what we have done, we have abandoned the old drip field. We have moved it down right into this area right here, which the commission sometime back allowed us to abandon this area which had been approved and approved this area. We sort of switched those around, if you'll remember. So now the drip field is in this area right here. Two good things about that. The drip field is a lot closer to the actual subdivision, and the drip field, by being there will never be any dirt excavated from that site, nor will there ever be any homes built on that site. So I think the neighbors that live in the Riverwalk will be pleased with that. Mr. Piercy, the commissioner, has spoken with me and to our excavator, Mr. Sadler, and he suggested that we come 150 foot off of the road for this site right here that has been approved, but we have done no excavation in that site to date. So I think he has made a brilliant suggestion that we put a buffer here, but what I would like to recommend, and we'll come back to the commission probably in the next month or two, and I'll just give you advance warning, this is what we're thinking about since Mr. Piercy has made this suggestion. What I think we would like to do is totally abandon this site and come back and ask for approval of the old drip field site, and which is about the same acreage, then we'll come right here and build the buffer that he has suggested, 150 feet off the road, which will block any traffic going down that road. Also, there won't be any excavation in the back door of these residents here in the subdivision. So that's our long-range plans, Mr. Chairman. I think it's going to be something that'll be advantageous to that subdivision there. I've just given you a heads up. I wasn't planning on saying that today, but I thought, you know, since we were trying to get everything.
Then the county commission would be making that decision. I also like to point out, too, when we first started this project, I personally went out to this site and walked over it. And this site was in terrible condition at the time. It was grown up, there were bushes everywhere, and there were holes in it already. So I don't know if what would make it any better, we thought, is when we started this project. And reclamation would make that whole area a lot better. I'm not sure that just leaving it like it was would have been any enhancement to the neighbors that live out there.
We've given our word that we will reclaim this area. It'll be in good shape when we get done, and we appreciate the Commission's understanding what we're doing and what we plan to do in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're still open for public hearing. Anyone who has not had a chance to speak. We'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the request.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. Unanimous approval by the board. And before we leave this, I have a feeling so much of the comments that are coming here are in opposition to the landfill, and I can understand that very much. Probably no one wants a landfill that close to them. But just to give you a really quick background on this, I was on the county commission from 1969 to 83. And that was the time that the sanitary landfill was approved by the county. Now, what led us into bringing this before us all? Here's was happening in this county. Now, we're not talking about this site here. This is the landfill. People were taking their garbage, their hardcore garbage, out in the rural area and dumping it. There was no legitimate pickup of garbage anywhere. The city of Murfreesboro was carrying their garbage out to Ben Hall McFarland's farm and dumping it. Every once in a while, they'd come in and put some dirt over it. And the city is paying for that now. You know, they've had to reclaim that. That was forced upon them by the state of Tennessee. Now, we had at least 200 or 300 legitimate garbage dumps throughout the county, and people would dump their garbage on some farmer's farm without permission. Now, this is hard garbage, so the county had to do something, and the best technology at the time was the technology of a sanitary landfill. And to this day, we have no better opportunity except a sanitary landfill. Now, that's what led to it. Now, whether you like it or not, we've got to have a way to pick up all of our garbage. Everybody wants to send it to somewhere else. The opportunities are not really good for us to do that, and the cost of it is tremendous. So I think the county is probably doing the best thing that they can, and in what we're trying to do now. And I don't know what's going to happen out there, but the majority of the people in this county are approving a sanitary landfill until we have a better technology to take care of our garbage. And that's a little bit of the history about it without trying to be for it or against it one way or the other. Thank you for listening. The next item we have is a request by Lawrence Atkins, and this is asked for a special approval for a rural retreat. What do you have on that?
Thank you. Application 2018-7 is an applicant filed by Lawrence Atkin for a rural retreat upon a property located in the residential medium zoning district. It's a 22-acre farm in which there is a farmhouse that's being resided in on the property, and the applicant would like the opportunity to have special events such as weddings in accordance with our rural retreat regulations at this particular site. As you saw in the staff report, the application itself mentioned outdoor concerts. However, that falls under a different category of special exception, and each outdoor concert would require its own permit. And so your approval tonight is only for rural retreats, which falls is defined as celebrations, private celebrations, that they're allowed to rent the venue out for people to have celebrations such as family reunions, birthdays, weddings, that sort of event. So if approved tonight, the request would, before they could establish the use upon the property, they would have to go through site plan review and demonstrate that they meet all of our technical standards. Now, the applicant has responded to a lot of the criteria for rural retreats, and it's discussed in the staff report. We did receive some calls out of concern because of some activities that have taken place in the past and that they were opposed to outdoor events or outdoor performances at this particular location, though they were notified that this request only focuses on the weddings and that which falls under our definition of rural retreat. The applicant has been notified that they would either need to come before the board each time for an outdoor performance or apply for a more permanent zoning district that would allow them to have it on an ongoing basis, and that would probably be the best fit for that would be a PUD type zoning district. So we posted a sign on the property. We did receive a couple informational calls that did not indicate opposition or in favor, but they spoke very highly of the applicant and the family that has possession of the farm. These are photos of the surrounding area. Staff has some concerns about Shady Lane. It is a narrow road that does not have any markings on it and can address any concerns that you might have with the road itself. But that again, any structures or before they can establish the use on the property, it will go through site plan review to make sure that parking is provided for on site and that they're meeting the buffers that are established for rural retreats. The applicant included in their application some photos of some of the structures on the site and just the atmosphere that they like to provide on the property. And this is a concept plan that was provided by the applicant to show the location of existing structures. Most of them were used for agricultural purposes and the two residences on site, as well as some other structures on the property. Now, if they were constructed under the agricultural exemption, they would have to receive a change of occupancy permit and be inspected to make sure that it's safe for human occupancy. Would be some inspections associated with that in any new structure that's being erected on the property. And this area is the proposed parking area. And that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request? To come around, please.
Lawrence Atkin. I reside at 3722 Shady Lane.
Do you have any other information you want to share about
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too in depth and bore you too much, but a brief overview is this has been in our family probably it's been my wife's family for roughly 80 years. And there's been a series of different people that have kind of taken control in charge of the farm. It's been cattle farm, it's been a dairy farm in the beginning. It was a shooting preserve. It was there's been somebody, my mother-in-law's husband had a quail preserve there. It's just been many different things. And right now, my mother-in-law is 98 and has, stage 7 dementia. And so my wife and I moved in there about 8 years ago to try to, take care of her and take care of the farm. And my wife's cousin is Sam. He's kind of helping me do the venue. And we've been there almost 8 years, and the money's about to run out. So we're just trying to, make enough money. Sorry, it's a little emotional. I didn't think I would do this. We're just trying to make enough money to maintain and not have to sell the property or have it subdivided or anything like that. So we've decided everybody loves the farm. Everybody loves to come there. The family all wants to keep it. All our friends and relatives and neighbors, they all like it. And we just felt like it was a wonderful place that's separate from the houses. And we just thought it'd be a good place for a venue for a few things a year, just try to make some money, extra money. As far as the music that was addressed, we have done 2 music events. We purchased, we bought online, we won an auction for charity for the Tennessee Songwriters Association International, and they came out and performed one time. It didn't last past 10 o'clock. And that was just a party. It was just kind of a get-together. We invited all the neighbors. There was probably a couple hundred people. It went really smooth. Everybody came in sections. Nobody came in at the same time. Nobody left at the same time. That's a separate issue. But the people who said something about the noise, that's what happened there. We also had a New Year's Eve party, and we aimed the music out to the field, and those were the 2 things that we've done. And we had a band there. It was Tim McGraw's old band, the Dance Hall Doctors, and I'm friends with Billy Mason, who's the drummer, and he's relaunching the band, and he wanted to have a party and show off the band and everything. So I said, let's do it at the farm. So we've had 2 musical events. We haven't charged any money for anything. It's just been strictly parties. We've had a wedding. It was my sister's wedding, sister-in-law's wedding. It was beautiful. It went really, really well. And we had another wedding that was a really close friend of the family, and it was gorgeous. And there's pictures online if you want to check out our Facebook page, which is the farm at Route 8 Shady Lane. So you can see kind of what we're looking for, what we're trying to do. So that's kind of a brief overview of why we're trying to hold on to this farm and to just have a few events a year, maybe 12 to 20 events at the most, and just keep a little bit of money, make a little money. So the house has got parts of the house that are 100 years old. The heat and air unit is 25 years old, and it's going to take, everybody wants to.
We kind of get the idea
all right,
now.
so we're just trying, that's
You
kind of what we're
understand
trying to
we're
do.
not considering a music festival.
Right, I understand that. I'm not applying for that. I just want to have some weddings, maybe some corporate outings, birthday parties, stuff like that. We will take on the music thing correctly and at your guidance at a later time. And I'll do everything, by the book. And
Gary?
Okay, the weddings, where are the weddings going to be held, and are they going to be held in any of the structures?
Well, we've got that pavilion that has the 8 on it.
If you go back to...
If you can go back to some of the 4 pictures together, we'll show a good bit. The top right, that's we park our tractor under there. We store some hay under there. It's kind of just an all-utility building, but we built it. My cousin is a master carpenter and tends to not necessarily overkill, but he is really, really thorough and does a great. Those poles are 6 feet in the ground each. They're telephone poles. Hurricane ties hold the trusses to the LVLs. The trusses are sitting on double LVLs. But we have had, that's been like where the musicians have sat, and we've had a wedding under there. And that's all we've had under that. But that's kind of, it's an outdoor venue. The tables were set up outside, and the other building on the right was built in 1911. It was a corn crib that was dilapidated, and we restored that. and it just had the food.
All right, question is, the barn.
No,
Now,
we don't use it, we're not using that. It's not safe for people to go up. It's safe to go up in it, but not for a gathering. It's just for the aesthetics.
so you don't have any intent to even use that barn for
Ever.
any?
No, it's too close to the houses, first of all. We don't want the people that close to our residents. That's just for looks, and that sign, I mean, that flag was actually used in a Martina McBride video here in Murfreesboro,
Where?
and we've got it now, and we hang that from the barn at different, it's just we've got lights that shine up on it at night. It's just a spectacular,
Right.
so that, no, we never intend to use that barn for anything in the venue at all.
So all.
We block that off, actually. There's a big cattle gates we stop so they can't get up, they can't even get up there.
So all of the venues are going to be on the outside, not any inside?
We don't have anything inside at this point. No, it's an outside venue right now. And we intend to build another barn, a hay barn, that was going to be like a pavilion structure. I have a 50 by 30 tent that I can put up in case of inclement weather. I also have some smaller ones too, 20 by 20 and a 20 by 10. So I can get people out of the rain, because you plan out weddings ahead of time, a long time, and you can't count on the weather. So I want to be able to keep people dry if I need.
And just to give you some advice, once you do that, that's going to require some other things, and you'll have to get building permits.
Right, I
and all that
understand.
stuff.
I understand that. She's let us know we have to get permits. We're no problem with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jerry?
Can you tell me what kind of amplification do you use?
I don't know the specifics. Do you know the specifics of the amplification that we use? The speakers. It's from Concert Productions. John Richards supplies it.
What I'm really asking is, is it going to be where your neighbors can hear it?
One neighbor only, and she's here in behalf to speak. There's nobody in the direction of the speakers. It's just fields. There's nobody for a mile or better, and there's nobody to the right or left except one family member, and she's here to speak.
You're well aware of Shady Lane's narrow
Yes.
passage. There'll be no parking on Shady Lane.
No, it's all on the property. We've got a gravel lot, and then several different designated areas off of the drive that can be parked in, and then a reserved parking area set up for later use.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing. For anyone who'd like to speak on this request, if you'll come around, please, give us your name and share the information.
My comments are brief. I'll speak in favor of this permit. My name is Becky Walker, and I speak on behalf of myself and my husband, Marty. We own the immediate adjacent property at 3748 Shady Lane. We also own and live across the street at 3831 Shady Lane. I also speak for my sister, Edith Smith, and her husband, Douglas, who could not attend today. They own and live adjacent to the property at 3752 Shady Lane. I'm also going to speak for my cousin Sam Lee, who also lives there at the property 3722, and he owns vacant land there on Shady Lane. So my family has owned this farm since January 2nd, 1946. It was originally about 250 acres. My grandmother actually named that road Shady Lane. The owners of the property in question are all my cousins. I own that adjacent house. It is rented right now. That was my parents' home. They lived there over 40 years. I inherited that property. My goal is to live until we see that this be a century farm. And our family has a deep appreciation for the farm and our homes and our life on Shady Lane. There are only about 30 owners on Shady Lane, and 7 of us are related, and we call this our own little slice of heaven. Larry's been in the family for about 38 years and has lived on Shady Lane, I think about 12 this time. And the family is set on keeping the family farm. They need the source of income in order to continue to care for Aunt Ann the 97-year-old, I think, mother-in-law of Larry, who resides there on the property, and just pay for her expenses and taxes and insurance on the farm. So we really support the venue. My renter in the property has no problem at all. They are right on the venue. The little gray vinyl house is the house I'm talking about that I own and that I have a renter in. It's actually the property there on the left. So that was originally the family farm, the old home place. So when my parents inherited about 70 acres, they built the little gray house there. Then my sister lives on further back, a little bit on into that property. Actually, y'all recently helped us get through our, probating the estate and getting all that done.
Thank you.
So I speak
Thank
in
you very
favor.
much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We'll close, come around.
My name's Michael Beck. I live in Emerald Estates, which is about 350 yards north of the venue, and I can assure you that the noise is a problem. I have two concerns. As with these folks, we love our neighborhood. My wife and I have lived there for almost 30 years. It's a quiet place, especially at night, and this is a nuisance. It was last summer. This business of no music after 10 o'clock is not the way it was operated last summer. I don't know what the future holds. Shady Lane is a dangerous, narrow little road. Anything that increases the traffic on it, especially at night, is a real concern. But again, the Hayneses have been great neighbors. It's a beautiful farm. We understand what they're trying to do. But the noise at night drives us crazy. And I hope that however this proceeds, I hope that these folks will take that into consideration. We certainly do hear that at night. And it was well past midnight the last time this was a problem. Right before we decided to call the county and have them come out and go down and try and get it closed down, it stopped.
Wait just a
Thank
minute.
you.
All right, I got a question. So it's my understanding is, and somebody correct me if I'm incorrect, there's no music on this that's going to be allowed on here, correct?
Well, outdoor performances, concerts, but weddings often have music and they have DJs and maybe even bands. And since this venue is going to be primarily outdoor, if it's approved, he will be required to turn off any outdoor amplification at 10.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Still open for a public hearing for anyone who wants to speak on this. Close the public hearing. Any comments or questions?
I have a comment. Looking at this and being pretty familiar with some property out there, and just a few minutes ago realizing that Mrs. Walker is a neighbor out there, I couldn't think of a better piece of property for a venue and good folks around it, because I know her fairly well. However, wrong road. I just have a really bad feeling some of those curves on Shady Lane. I envision, even 50 people, much less 150, getting to a venue from Compton or 96, or leaving a venue, especially at night, on that road. I know in my pickup truck, if I meet a pickup truck, we both actually have to leave the road a little bit to get past one another to keep mirrors from clicking. How that impacts other folks that live out there, I think that's a little much on them. And more importantly, I just envision someone having a medical emergency, and emergency equipment cannot get to them because of that one-lane road that just happens to be clogged up or blocked. I think it could be a disaster for somebody. So again, I love the site. I think it's a great idea. I'm sensitive to the desires and the needs. If it were not on that particular road, I'd be 100% for it.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion? Need to give these folks an answer.
Mr. Chairman, based on the safety and welfare for the general public and the fact that that venue is on a one-lane road, I make the motion that we deny the application.
Say that again, your motion is what?
Based on the fact that this property is on a one-lane road, which could jeopardize safety and welfare of the general public that's out there, I move that we deny the
And it'd be
application.
denied for those reasons. Did you get that? Do we have a second? Got a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Dane Cantrell.
Request is denied. Any other business that needs to come before us? No, sir. We are adjourned.